Good evening, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. I know it's quite a fine night. None of you have got really wet unless you live very far north of the M25. But here we are, launching Autumn Makes Me Sing. And it made a lot of people who are here tonight sing beautifully. Um, and the person who had the first benefit of those songs was Catherine Southworth, who is sitting here with us in the top left hand corner of my screen, but I don't know where she is on yours. And she is going to talk to you about what it was like doing the judging, because it's not an easy job.
Mhm.
So, Catherine, would you like to talk to us about that?
Hello. Well, it is a very interesting and unusual experience being a judge because I can't think of any other situation in which you read poetry in a totally uncontextualized way. You always have a reason for reading a poem, usually in an anthology or in a journal or because someone's recommended it. And one of the first things you do is kind of skip to the back and look at the biography of the poet as well. So there's all sorts of clues that influence your reading of the poem. And it's a bit like going back, judging a competition, to when you did practical criticisms when you were at school, when you had none of these clues and you were thrown back on your kind of understanding of technique and in what in the end is a gut reaction. Because obviously, beyond a certain competence in the writing of a poem, when you put your poem in for a competition, you're in the hands of a judge who ultimately is going to go with their preferences and with their gut. And there's nothing you can do about it. And for once, I had that power. And it's very exciting to be able to indulge your own preferences for once. But I have to say that above all, what you're looking for is the skill, the competency, the resonance, the sensuous quality, the convincingness of the voice, all those things, of course, you all know about and you've all demonstrated amply in the poems that you submitted for this competition. And of course, it's a great privilege, and I thank you very much for entrusting your poems to Janice and Donald and to myself. So, excuse me for having exercised my indulgence in this way, but it was a unique privilege. What was I looking for? Well, above all, looking for a decent structure to a poem. That's what kind of makes a poem and not something else. And the very best poems, you earn that last line. That last line makes you look back to the beginning of the poem, to the title of the poem, to the first line of the poem in a different way. You've undergone a voyage of experience. And whatever the resonance of the poem, it needs to make you undergo that experience of going back to it again, thinking, ah, yes, now I know why it's called that. Now I know why the first line starts the poem in that kind of way. The last line has to do that. And all too often, a last line doesn't do that. So thank you all for constructing beautiful poems that take us all on a journey. Obviously, there has to be a clarity in poems as well. You're not saying that poem has to be yielding all its meaning at first hand, first time you read it. No, but it has to grab you with a kind of argument or a kind of experience that you can pick up as soon as you read it. Density is one thing. Ambiguity is okay, but mistiness and complete kind of incomprehension is something else. That's just a self-indulgent play on words and images, and it's not anything that I've chosen for this anthology. What a lot of the poems that are in this anthology have, particularly the winners and the commended poems, is a quality of sensuousness. And clearly that's what poetry does particularly well. And those are the poems that kind of come back to you. They may not hit you the first time round, but you can't quite let them go. So most of the winners and the commended poems were poems of that kind. But above all, in terms of the winner, Janet's poem, and in terms of the second poem, there was a message. And poems with a message can be very poor poems. They can be poems that people feel they've got to write about because of some horrible crisis in the world, some dreadful experience they want to bear witness to. But unless they find a way of engaging us through an individual connection, an overwhelming experience that we can identify with, then they're not going to work. In the case of Janet's poem, I was grabbed by that from the moment I read it. I knew it was going to be the winner. I couldn't let go of it, and it wouldn't let go of me. And I showed it, I have to say, to members of my family who were so moved, they were moved to tears by this poem. And it never stops moving you. It is a deeply engaging poem. For the other winners, they too bear witness in one way or another, bear witness literally to the resurrection in the case of the second place poem, or witness to an incredible sensuous experience that stays with the poet and the reader. So I'm so looking forward to being able to put faces to names to poems. It was very exciting for me to be able to put names to the poems that I'd chosen. In some cases, there were people I knew quite well. In some cases, there are people I've been a colleague of in the past, Paul. So it was very exciting to find that the poems were by people that I knew. And it was very humbling to read the contributors' biographies and see the very distinguished people who make up this anthology. I think it's a booklet of considerable quality. I'm very proud of it on your behalf and on Janice and Donald's behalf. And I'm really looking forward to hearing these poems read tonight. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. That was that told us a lot about what poems are. Thank you. And now we're going to hear the poems. So, Janet, would you like to read your poem for us now, please?
Okay, thank you very much. The light in his eyes. Here we are living in darkness and tragedy, the rockets falling on us. I looked at my twin nephews, saw only fear in their eyes. I thought of creating light. Hussam al-Atta, age 15. When the sun went down, Hussam and his family sat in the dark, in the small glow of a gas lamp. Next day, at the scrap market, he found 2 fans, some wires. Reuters said he looks and sounds young for his age, as if all 15-year-olds don't look and sound young. After the bombing of Al-Azhar University, an Israeli soldier filmed himself on TikTok mocking students. He said, "For those asking why there is no education in Gaza, we bombed them. Oh, too bad. That way you'll not be engineers anymore." The wind blows, the fans turn, generate friction inside the dynamo. A current travels through the wires, lights up the tent. Hussam wants to be an engineer when he's older, loves creating something out of broken things.
That's a beautiful poem. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And now, the second poem I'm going to read because Sue Norton, who won the second prize, couldn't be here tonight. So it's called The Convent of San Marco, Florence. And the epigraph is, each year the monks moved cells for a different biblical mural to contemplate, all of them masterworks by Fra Angelico. The monk I envy most is the one with the resurrection inside his door. The painted scene almost smells of new beginnings. Red and white petals stipple the grass. A green palm sprouts a feathered plume. Mary Magdalene's on her knees at the black gape of the tomb, freshly cut from white rock. She's just found it's empty. Christ has a hoe on his shoulder, like the gardener she mistakes him for. And it's the moment he calls Mary. And she drops to her knees, face bewildered, arms uplifted. His hand touched with red to show where Friday's nail was hammered in, gestures away. Face kind, but no, don't touch me. Christ sidesteps to avoid her clutch. But it's not a rejection, no. He's about to appoint her apostle to the apostles, a messenger the men won't touch for centuries. Not believing the newly risen Christ would show himself first to an unreliable witness, to a woman. The painted garden draws its astonished breath. That was Sue Norton, lovely poem. And next we have Derek Sellon, who was third in the prize winners. So Derek, would you unmute and read to us, please?
Okay, I originally wrote this in a woman's voice in the first person. That's the version in the anthology. But tonight I'll read it in the third person. But at the time I felt the sounds of the poem were better with I than she and her. But The Merchant in Autumn. For you, I recommend, said the merchant, running his finger along the bolts of cloth, pausing to study her, then back to the colours. He swathed her in daffodil yellow, wrapping half her body, a shoulder to hip diagonal. He appraised, rejected, tried lilacs and reds, the most verdant green. She angled the mirror, but each time he whipped the fabric away with sighs, as if she disappointed. Too rich, he said, too cold, too hot. In the deep recesses of his shop, she saw still greys, thundercloud blacks, arctic gradations of white. She shivered to think of the blizzard of silks on her skin. Ah, now look at the bruised magnificence of these. Such phrases, such salesmanship, such commands. They will warm you like sunshine late in the year, bringing you peace, acceptance. Madam, I say, they are our only choice, these mulberries, these russets, these tarnished golds. The clock on his wall chimed. She made excuses and hurried out. In the market, the lying traders called, offering cheap jewels, tinctures, dresses. Too rich, he said in her ear, too cold, too hot, too soon, too late.
Lovely and so sensual, as Catherine said. Lovely, thank you. And Trisha Torrington wrote Paul is the next. Paul MacDonald wrote a commended poem. Paul?
Thank you. Thank you, Janice and Donald, for producing a wonderful anthology. Thank you, Catherine, who used to be my boss at the University of Wolverhampton. Not only was she a fantastic boss, she's also a discerning judge of poetry, as we can see. Mine's an ekphrastic poem. It's based on a photograph by Malik Sidibe, who's a photographer, who was a photographer from Mali. I urge you to go and have a look at the photograph if you don't know it, because it's a really beautiful photograph. My poem is Somewhere a Song is Frantic. These dancers cool the humid night with style. The shyest eyes can see beyond this slice of time, bewitched by clever feet, hers bare as lovers' tongues. These dancers would be sweethearts, swans entwined for life, if time ticked on. A single beat would seal it, hip to hip, till movement matches meaning. But look, a sudden slice of silence, his necktie in mid-swing, her cotton dress a frozen swish as stars forego their slide across the sky. Somewhere a song is frantic to continue. A loudspeaker tethered to a palm tree. A turntable mute on a tabletop, paused with the earth's spin. We wait for time and heartbeats to begin. Thank you.
That's great. I didn't realize it was ekphrastic. It was just a lovely poem. Thank you. And now Tricia Torrington, please.
Thanks. Well, the highly commended poem in the book is called You Missed Paris. But since we've had two sort of ekphrastic poems, I thought I'd read my other one, which is commended, well, shortlisted or whatever. And it's about Fra Filippo Lippi, who painted the most amazing picture called Madonna with Two Angels. And he painted himself into it and his son. And the woman in the poem is a nun who he married. So this is Madonna with Two Angels. Filippo Lippi sketches me in one of his many Madonnas. He says, I am like the white snow trees. He says, this is about family. He wants us to be natural, wear the halo as light. Filippo says, I am like the golden blossom. Pale fire, he calls me. Says I am fine silk, precious material. He wants stillness. He says, fold your hands like a butterfly, waiting in the light. I say, nuns know how to pray, to put our palms together, to supplicate. My fingers fall naturally to their old attitude until my hands are so full of prayer, I cannot hold the child. This painting is about family, and it is ours. He traces his own face on the Holy Child, paints Filippino as one messenger of God. Neither of them is an angel. Obsessed with the virginal, he wants to show purity. I am no longer pure, for he has taken me. I bore his child. In place of sanctity, I offer contemplation. In place of innocence, modesty. And he says, beauty wearing blue, Madonna's color, indigo as the mysterious night sky. Filippo Lippi paints me in Madonna with Two Angels.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much. That was a good choice. Beautiful. And
You're somehow being muted. I can't hear you.
hello, Rosie. I think you're muted. Only you're not now.
No, sorry.
Sorry.
I was waiting for someone else. I'm here. Right, sorry, silly. Autumn is the time for babies. Just in time to be interesting at Christmas. Autumn babies have a whole winter of rolling, crawling, cooed over by endless boomings of great aunts and stubbles of uncles. They take the sting out of all those cold, dank days of winter, after all the Christmas parties, when it seems the sun will never fully rise again. Springtime, and the half-yearlings gurgle with the language of babies the world over. Intonation comes later. Their summers spent eating mud, or if lucky, sand, being dunked in the waves on a holiday by the sea. Then autumn again, maybe an Indian summer, when Gaia seems to give the world a second chance, and those babies stagger from table leg to chair, finally walking. Autumn, when the prospect of another winter of war makes leaders think hard, negotiate, and soldiers make the most of their home leave, and more babies.
Lovely that. I loved that one. Thank you, Rosie. And next, Penny. Penny actually had a lot of poems in the book,
I
but
I
think
did
you have-
accidentally enter twice. That's why.
was that accidental? Well, they
Yeah.
were all good.
I sent a second set of poems without realizing I'd already sent 3. So apologies for that. I wasn't
That
being
was lovely, lovely. You got 4 shortlisted.
this
Fair
one is
enough.
this one is fairly autumnal. Now the clocks have gone back. All the street lights will be coming on by tea time. The title is "Do Not Be Alarmed," and we had reference earlier to Douglas Adams. The next line in Douglas Adams after "Do Not Be Alarmed" is "Be very, very afraid." So this poem is "Do Not Be Alarmed." The lampposts have started gathering on a night. Not the new ones. They stay where they're put. The ones that went unnoticed, unreplaced, concrete nudges to the memory, mini brutalist monuments dispersing sodium hazy light, always in old places, down by the lockups, the back alley by the shops, at the edge of the last field, the one halfway along the track, like a tiny pool of orange, would make that shortcut any safer. By this one is where they all huddle, swan necks bent together. The light still doesn't stretch any further. The weight of unopened black presses round them. They don't care. They talk of whether art is always political, what should be done about colony collapse, the final frailties of God. Clearly, something is starting to happen, but the lampposts aren't saying what.
That one so took me aback. I couldn't forget that one. I
Thank
see
you.
lampposts differently now. Thank you, Penny. And now we're going to hear from Alison. Alison Campbell, please.
Hi, this is in memory of my mother. Look at my mother's bones that I carry. The tibia wrapped in a witch hazel bandage. I carry her radius and ulnar, strained and weak from holding me up when I was small. She cleaned the house as I hung onto her, shirking from the roar of the Hoover, the warm smell of the bag wheezing its carpet dust. I'm carrying her orbital bone now, fractured when the folding bed sprung open. I lift her skull, rearrange the strands of hair, cover the bareness. I miss watching her do handstands. I hold her hands now in my mind, my fingers over hers. I stroke the loose creases of the skin covering her knuckles, that softness of flesh.
That was such a surprising poem and really works. It's lovely. Thank you. And Diana, can we hear from you now, please?
Certainly. This is my poem's called Ash Dieback. The ash trees are gone. Those 3 great trees that for years have framed my life, have been my waking and my sleeping, the first and last shapes on the threshold of my day. The house lies vulnerable to passing eyes, to neighbors curious about another's life. My small scratchings on the surface of the soil revealed, a garden hard won from flint and chalk, pleasure taken in a rosebed, harebell and forget-me-not. You planted rare daffodils beneath those trees, beguiling yellow lime, snowdrops in the green, a climbing rose blood red. How you live on as I work to reclaim them from the turmoil of the felling, train the rose up another healthy tree. I watch a wren, beak busy in the winter undergrowth, while the dog sleeps nose to paw, comma curled before the fire. Wind stirs in the chimney breast. The tree surgeon stops, kills the chainsaw, says he wishes you could see the garden now the trees are down. He recalls a conversation 10 years ago when you had thought the ashes should be felled. I had resisted, feeling it too soon. As we speak, we sighed against regret, but agreed to wish things had happened differently. I love that he remembered you. Thank you.
Yes, lovely. That's an unusual way to mourn, and very good. Thank you. And Gary, could we hear from you, please? Sorry, Tina. Tina Cole, please.
Hello.
Hello, Tina.
I have more than one poem in here, so I'm going to choose one. I'm going to choose one on page 54, called To a House We Once Lived In. I suppose I should thank you for opening your doors, allowing us to break crusts on the eyelids of old histories, beneath the 20 or so colours sandpapered away. The rusted windows flung puppet wide, mapped in rain and frames swollen tight shut, forced, hugged, hammered. The ladybirds which bled among the hinges soon displaced. The streets of houses handcuffed together, pole man, rag and bone, silverfish tickled from the cast iron bath, many luxury soakings in 3 kettles of hot water. The substance of years, so many nights between cold walls, stuck between floorboards like hairpins, bills gathering softly at the top of the stairs, in corners where the carpet did not reach. Blackbirds in the apple tree, a splitter of mice in the attic. Wet days when the sky was a scum skimming the canal. Burst pipes, drains overflowing. The 2-bar electric fire, the only welcome home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina. It's a great poem. Thank you. And we're going to hear Gary now. Gary Day, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, no,
Yes,
that's really
carry
right.
on.
Okay, this is called About Daffodils. Daffodils used to be so well behaved, knowing their place beside the lake, beneath the trees, yellow heads bent in deference to the stars' greater fires, a fluttering host greeting the lonely poet floating over hills and dales, delighting him even as he lay pensive on his couch, savouring the truths that come from solitude. The daffodils in my garden are a right bunch, spilling out like drunks from a bar, blowing their trumpets and shoving the snowdrops aside. Some sway unsteadily, while others fall flat on their faces. These guys don't dance, much less flutter, nor do they take kindly to being stared at by poets. I hide behind the couch, but hear them shuffling closer, their huge manes flaring.
Do you know that one brightened my day? We'd had a lot of very sad poems in, and I read them because I take them in. And I couldn't stop laughing. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And now Sharon. Sharon Green, please.
Hello.
Hello, Sharon.
Oh, hi. Thank you to you both and to Catherine for pulling us together. I'm just changing it. I've written unusually this time. It's a bit of a horrible theme, but it's Halloween tomorrow, so it might be quite appropriate. It's called 10 Things a Crime Scene Cleaner Should Know. Number 1, you cannot remove all the blood. 2, and blood is only a fraction of the issue. 3, there's also tissue and bone. 4, clients expect perfection. 5, but the odour will linger. 6, and the room will remember. 7, sometimes a spirit hovers. 8, staining the carpet with clues. 9, seeping into the floorboards. 10, you will never forget your first. Thank you.
Oh, Sharon, very Halloween, my God. I loved it. Didn't we?
Yeah, she's obviously done this before, like, you know, psycho killer here.
So next we go to Juliet, all the way from Jersey. Juliet, would you like to unmute?
Hi there. Good evening, everybody. And thank you. And I'm also very proud of this. So downsizing. Each day I will discard something else. A dining table, a box of diaries, a decanter, until I'm left with just enough to fill an apartment. I will get used to the new fall of light, how the slant of blinds fabricates ladders, lacerates corners, crimps patterns of leaves. What will I miss? Naked feet on carpeted stairs, hanging washing on the line, following the sun and the seasons around the garden. You. Thank you.
What a great breakup poem. I love it. Thank you. Thank you, Juliet. And Michael Henry, please. Would you like to unmute?
Just doing it, sorry.
Luftpost. This is the German for airmail. The start of a Cold War friendship, launching paper aeroplanes in a compartment on the S-Bahn. One landed in the lap of an East German. So Volkmar became the fifth musketeer with Ian, Coralie, Marimar, and me. Much later, I visited Ian in Victoria. His wife made homemade pasta. He plucked his pawn shop banjo and showed me letters from the GDR. They went with his East German memorabilia under the counter, like pornography. And I wondered how Volkmar's huge hands that worked with delicate optical equipment could write with undulations in straight-laced script. All the angst in the GDR was in his face. Petrified of eavesdroppers, he'd made us eat up every drop of communist soup with gristle and carrots. I visited him after reunification. He ate the leftovers off the plates.
Great. Thank you very much. That one also sprang out and made itself known to us. Thank you. And now we're going to ask Susan to read. Susan Jordan, please. Susan? Oh, hasn't she made it?
Sorry,
Oh,
I'm
good.
muted. Okay, I've got 3 poems in here, and the one I'd like to read is called Miss Austen Does Not Like Being Sculpted. Such a great annoyance having to stand still and be gazed at by the likes of this man who fancies himself a sculptor. No longer pretty, if I ever was, not wearing the dress I chose, but one he insisted on my wearing, forbidden to write or sew, speak, smile or laugh, for this interminable time, while his eyes, his shameless, prying eyes, examine each part of me, avoiding none. He took away my shawl, tried to pull my dress closer round my body. If I were a dog, I would have bitten him. Patience, my dear father would have said. Think how pleasing the result will be to us, your family. I know my sister will dislike heartily the crude clay, the features a travesty of mine, the body all too obviously implied under its dress. This is the last time I shall endure it. Tomorrow I shall skewer him in my novel.
Lovely. Yeah, we love that too. But there isn't actually a sculpture of Jane Austen at Chawton, is there?
No, where it came from actually was another poet wrote a poem about somebody sculpting Jane Austen.
Ah, right.
And that was my riposte.
That's very much what she would have said, I think. Very good. Thank you. And Tim Keeley's got 2 poems in it as well. So he can choose which one he wants to read. Tim.
Good evening. And thank you very much again, Janice and Donald, and thank you very much to Catherine. I'm picking the one that has been chosen to see out the anthology as a whole. It's the last one. This is, I must admit, I cannot remember who in fact used this as a title for another work somewhere else. It's supposed to be a Zen koan, although I don't think any source has ever been found for the original. It's called There Is No God and He Is Always With You. Bright puddle where the soul-free cloud life roams. This holds even for those long since made agreeable to the open space where a soul would be, to the dawn sky emptying and filling its plough-shaped flock of birds, now coasting, now diving askew about who knows what errands not concerning you.
Yes, that did seem to be an apt one to finish with. Very good. Thank you. And we're going to hear from Gerald now. Gerald Killingworth, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I've rearranged a couple of the lines since publication because they make a bit more sense. It's called Her Last Snow. Soft and endless, the snow gathers in crazy drifts, maverick sculptures defying every guess. It's my last snow, she says. I'm so glad they managed it. She rests below the level of the window, watching modest pyramids grow on the sill, and the snow falling, distracting her from other urgent things. Tell me about the garden, she says. Has the fox called yet, padding its signature? What transformations? She has drawn her own white sheet over all those years, given the last determined smile, a touch of the fingers. Darling, may I leave now? Her last spring and summer went unnoticed, so too the birthdays. But the snow brings a peace and silence we, in our grief, shall struggle to achieve.
Thank you very much. Yes, it was very moving. The last snow, the last daffodil, the last anything. Thank you. And Wendy Klein, please.
Yes, yes. Ladybirds is so much the stuff of fairy tales and children's stories, the gentle ones. I was surprised to find the truth about cannibal ladybirds. Like a domestic version of the plague of locusts, they come in through cracks and crevices we didn't know existed. Orange and black and sudden, their dots too tiny to count to determine whether they're foreign, and should be squashed or deported or domestic to be welcomed and admired. They play dead so deftly, we can't decide whether to attempt rescue or sweep them away, hoover them up. But when I trap one between my fingers, it oozes yellow in protest, and placed on the back of my hand, it bites, leaves a wound, small as a pinprick, sharp as retaliation.
Yes, that's another surprising poem. Thank you very much, Wendy.
It happens.
It did happen, yeah.
True story.
Ladybird bites a lady. Thank you.
This is the emotional pantry. An emotional pantry is the best place for cooling things down. Leftovers, once hot and intense, sit there in a bewildered afterglow, smoking. Lovesick jellies upon the next shelf wobble forlornly. Tins of anchovies and sardines, self-contained and unmoved, sit primly above frustrated packets of Angel Delight, who long to display their gaudy, sugary colours. Jars of artichokes and pickled onions carry their own private and tumultuous pungency. Table salt and industrial pepper sit complacently side by side. Old warriors, seeing it all before, like the hardened, granulated sugar opposite, or the world-weary wholemeal flour, battling constantly with uninvited weevils. They've witnessed these needy ingredients come and go. Of course, things get soured by the occasional chicken carcass, left there a day too long under white mesh, stunning the edible inhabitants at how little it takes.
So now we can press on with Jenna. Thank you.
Right. Sand. I see you, surf whirling round ankles, forced by an eternity of beat. Your small body, sand, mica glinting your bare feet, sand and salt rasping your wet skin. Later, I find more sand on the kitchen floor, sweep up the slow grinding of millennia into grit. And smaller, infinitely small, the indelible stain of microplastic that taints the loveliness of gorse and oyster catchers, hermit crabs and cowrie shells. The sea smooths away your footprints, wind ruffles the dunes, gulls scream, unclean, 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 unclean.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was a little distracted because Dave Wynne-Jones, I've removed your doppelganger.
Oh, good.
But I've kept you in, I think. So there we are. Jenna, that was a lovely poem. Thank you very much. And I don't think it was interfered with. Thank you. And our next poet is Gareth Roberts, please.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
This is another beach poem. Armadale. An autumn sea crumples to the beach and sighs across the little curve of Armadale, laps at the lips of a footprint left for a whirlpool to scuttle a storm-battled crab Columbus in its ragged frigate of weed. Abused by the breeze, this is the place where seagulls practice their bigotries, mock the sheep that drift insensible as storm clouds through the crab's frail fleet, flapping with the unlashed sail of skirts that play around her like a child. She tears a smile through her face as a hand grasps the hands of the wind, coughs a gull-like amen. Rain cloud eyes blinking at nothing that she can see with them, while Columbus battles on through his storm, through the whirlpools of footprints kept for a moment between the tides.
That's lovely. I've got it open in front of me. That's a lovely poem to read as well. Thank you. And now we'll have Christine to her microphone, please. Christine Weil.
Like everybody else, thank you so much to everybody involved in choosing this poem and putting this wonderful anthology together. My poem is called Mugged. Shards of my favourite coffee mug spill out onto the evening patio. A stumble in the dark, and something else beautiful has been broken. At a time when all my morning mirror has to offer me is a crazy paving face. Nor love, nor time, nor utilitarian glue, nor kintsugi gold, nor 7 years bad luck, nor all the king's men can put this Humpty Dumpty back together again. Instead, the open-mouthed bin yawns wide. It's ready and waiting for the both of us.
The two poems in the anthology are the first poems of mine to appear in print, and that's very exciting for me. And because it's Halloween tomorrow, I'm going to go gothic and read The Old Ways. The Old Ways. Young Dolan never listened. Straight after his Da's Requiem, he grubbed out the fairy tree that stood on the hillside of ancient stone and buckled whin, all the townland knew. As soon as that hawthorn burnt, all the milk from Dolan's herd, pinked with blood in the pail, his lambs were all stillborn. One had an eyeless head. Every night his front door shook, even when the wind was still next the back door too, fever in its bolts. Speaking many tongues, young Dolan was led away one black Sunday morning by Patterson, the doctor, a kind man, though a Protestant. We stared at our pints in Mooney's bar on Monday, reflecting on the old ways, how they are not mocked. Put coins in collection tins for families of the volunteers in Longkesh and Magabry, and did not ask what Murphy's boys had hidden in the bar.
Whoa, yes, I love that. The storytelling in it. And the other one that you put in is also about that same sort of community, I think. It's lovely. Thank you. Please, could we hear from Tony Watts now?
Thank you, Janice. From the mainland. Mile upon mile of library shelves play host to a whispering dust. It is the ghost of every tale no longer told one to another in the firelit circle. TV cameras shepherd to my room, enough wildlife to scupper Noah's Ark 100 times over. Yet there is no beast I'd hunt or harbour or take as totem on a spirit's journey. Courtesy of fibre optics, I can name all the gods of humankind, yet none I'd worship or entreat. I can look in on feasts and festivals around the world and never join the dance. We're wallflowers all, sated tourists picnicking among our own ruins. The cosmos is in flight from its centre. Men follow, fleeing theirs. Nothing can appease them short of the unapproachable God to which the unnamed stars come no closer than the toddler who one day makes it to the garden gate. I'd like to be an island poet, somewhere off the coast of Scotland. I would cast my song like a net, trawl in those images, the lark on the hill, the boat in the bay. My verses, known to fisherman and laird alike, would show how the eternal is not found in the far distances of space and time, but simply in knowing how to be at home within the magic circle of the sea. Here.
Thank you. That really evoked. I thought, what a nice idea to be a poet on an island all on your own. thought that was great.
Hmm.
Last verse. Yeah, but lovely. Thank you. Oh, before we go on, I'd just like to say to Heather, because your poem was interrupted, could you read it again at the end, please, so that I can edit it in its entirety? Heather, are you there? Heather?
Yes, happy to. You meant me,
Would
didn't you?
you?
Yes.
That would be lovely.
Yes,
Thank
of course I will. Yes. Oh dear.
But
Thank you.
that's two more poets to go, and then Heather, and then right. Next we have Rod. Rod Whitworth. Would you like to read for us, please?
Yeah, this is lovely, isn't it? I'm enjoying this. August legs. August has the loveliest legs, not like Marlene Dietrich or even Sid Charisse. August has the legs of Beryl Burton. August wants to turn pedals. And the legs of Tenzing Norgay. August wants to walk up hills. August wants to keep on doing it. Thank you.
Oh, yes, that got to me. Loved another one that brightened my morning when I opened it up. Thank you very much. And David Wynne Jones, could you read for us, please?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about earlier. I had problems joining with the computer. So anyway, this is a poem based on suddenly being reminded of the climate crisis, basically, and its past and worrying about its future. June Pollarding. It has an epigraph. You should always pollard your tree every year when the tree is dormant, in late winter or very early spring. There was something indecent about the way the work crew stripped the tree, yelling and swarming over widespread arms, slung from a rigging of ropes, helmeted and visored, wielding chainsaws, violation in the buzzing saw teeth, the rattling snarl of mechanism masticating nests and branchlets, spitting out a year's regrowth into a trailer load of wood chips, mulch, as leaf litter blew along the street. In the quiet aftermath, mist twigs shivered a few last leaves. Naked boughs shook fingerless fists at the angry sky for weeks before drawing on green mittens of new leafage, wrapping rags of raiment around scarred limbs, while ferns colonized the cracked brickwork of a nearby chimney stack. The same insurgency of vegetation that splits concrete slabs, roots into tarmac in the center of little used lanes. Years ago, field margins where I walk were planted with broad-leaved woodland, native species, under the set-aside scheme. Today, I found a stand of cherry trees, laden with clusters of the sweet black fruit, and thought how hard it had been to protect, on my small holding 30 years ago, any such harvest from the depredations of songbirds. Listening in the silence now to the wind's whisper, too little, too late. Thanks.
Yes, you take a very poetic view, a sideways view of the problem of of the death of nature.